This is the Fuji X10 in late 2025 and 2026, and it's the reason why the X100 line exists. I recently went to Nashville, and before I left, I bought this thing on Marketplace for $220 US. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the pros and cons of a 15-year-old camera for photography. As always, if you wanna see the raw images that come out of this camera, you can see it in the description below. Let's start with the pros. One of my favorite things about this camera is for sure the built-in flash. So it's a small little pop-up flash, doesn't get in the way, and you can adjust the strength on it as well. It really makes this camera so versatile, more than just like this travel compact thing. You can bring it to house parties and you can bring it to weddings when the sun goes down and still get really good images out of it. It's like that Vogue high flash. So I really like that. And lastly, if you want to change the shutter speed, like drop the shutter speed in manual settings, you can get some really cool results with that as well. Next, this camera is a really good alternative to film. And what I mean by that is that the upfront costs of film are not that much, but over time, it is quite expensive, like $1 or $2 per shot, and that's kind of frustrating. With something like this, you know what you're gonna get, and with film, it's like a box of chocolates, you never know. Now, your point and shoot camera is only ever as good as the lens that's on it, and this is a fixed lens that goes from 28mm to 112mm. The quality of this lens is truly what makes this camera unique, and I've been absolutely blown away with the quality considering that it is 15 years old. The sensor size isn't the biggest, it's a 2/3 inch sensor, but it does shoot 12 megapixels, which I think is plenty enough for social media and things like that. That sensor size isn't going to be the best for low light, but we'll talk about that a little bit in the cons. The most important part for me is that it shoots raw, and if you're like me, you really like playing around with presets and editing your photos in Lightroom. I could chill all night and do that and listen to some lo-fi, so that is a draw for this camera for me. I know a lot of people like the Fuji X105 and the X106 because you have those film emulations and it's just a JPEG straight out of it. For me, that's kind of where I dislike those cameras, because yes, they're amazing cameras, but you have to spend all that money, and for someone like me who actually enjoys the process of editing, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Really quick, if you're finding value in this video, it goes a really long way if you could just leave a like. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, and let's dive back in. So as mentioned, this camera does have a pretty cool retro aesthetic on it. I kind of wish it had more buttons and dials on the top, but it does have like some cool clicky wheels for exposure compensation and things like that. And then in terms of durability, this thing is really cool as well because I could just throw it in my bag. I don't even really need a case for it. I trust it that much. And that does have a pretty cool lens cap as well. The size of this camera is definitely a selling feature as well. For me, I just use it for street photography and travel photography and things like that. And then as mentioned, for like a fun night out, or if I'm on like a party bus or something like that for someone's birthday, that flash is going to come in handy. In terms of battery life for this camera, it's not the biggest battery. However, for photography, it's going to last you a couple days if it's like a brand new battery. The problem is this came with 5, and there's a reason for that. It was because this camera was used quite heavily, and I think the batteries had been drained quite a bit. So I'll get about a day out of it for photography use, but I'm gonna bring 2 with me when I go out and hit the streets. Because you will be buying used, it might be a good idea to go buy like a brand new 2-pack of these batteries on Amazon, and they're quite cheap. The last pro I'll say about this camera is that it does have a fully automatic mode for someone who doesn't really know how to shoot manual. My dad smashed his phone when we were at the Speedway in Nashville for a car show, and I gave him this camera and he just walked around with it, framed it up, and the photos turned out awesome. The closest comparison I could give you is the Sony RX100 line, maybe the Mark II or Mark IV. I made videos on both of them. You can check them out here. But just in terms of like the price point, and then also the quality that you're gonna get for photography is probably the closest comp. So if you're debating this camera, it might be worth checking out the Sony videos as well. So as you know, I took this $200 Fuji camera to Nashville, and I still can't get over how good the quality was. A week after I had gotten home and edited the gallery, Artlist messaged me and said I can now turn my photo edits into video. So I had to try it out. And I'll let you be the judge of it. Every photo kind of had the same story, but with a little bit of a twist. You're allowed to hate AI all you want, but it's absolutely crushing for the creator space right now. There's so many applications you can use this for, but if you're mood boarding or storyboarding for a client or something like that, turning photos into video to kind of show your concept is an amazing way to do that. Every month, it seems like Artlist is adding a new feature that helps creators, but every time I talk about them, people say it's too expensive. It's literally $10 a month, which is $120 a year, and if you do a couple headshots, you easily have that paid for. It's cheaper than Netflix, and it saves you hours of editing. So go check them out, or don't, and stay stuck in your 9 to 5 5 forever. Big thanks to Artlist for continuing to level up the game and sponsoring this channel. Let's finish off the video with the cons, and there are a few. It is a 15-year-old camera, so I'd be remiss if I didn't bring them up. The first is that it has an optical viewfinder, and what I mean by that is if you put your eye to it, you're not going to see any like digital settings or things like that, and you do see the extension of the barrel a little bit through that viewfinder, but I think that makes it quite a unique experience overall. So anyways, you'd probably have to try it to know, but I'll show an example here. The second con is autofocus. We haven't talked about this yet, but autofocus technology has come such a long way. So if you have a modern camera, you're absolutely spoiled. In terms of this camera, it does have a manual focus, an autofocus continuous, and then an autofocus single shot. And I found like the best accuracy was with the autofocus single shot. I also found that at concerts and things like that, when I was zoomed all the way into the 112 millimeters, I was struggling a little bit more with my focus, whereas if I'm on the 28 mil end, it did a much better job. The next con is that if you're a video shooter, I highly advise against not buying this camera. It's strictly for like street photography and travel photography if you want something small. For a lot of people, they're going to be sad to hear that you can't load new film simulations onto this. Again, I alluded to the fact that I think the X105 and X106, that whole film emulation thing, I know this is a hot take, but I think that's a little overrated based on like the price you're paying for it. For me, I just like to make my own presets and I like to play around with that. So I'm actually giving away a preset right now if you want to check it out in the description. Two more cons for you. And the first one is that this thing is rated for an aperture of f2 on the wide end or f2.8 at the tight end. And what you're going to find is like, you might think to yourself, oh, that's great, I'm going to get some good bokeh from this, but because it is a smaller sensor, that's actually not completely accurate. For reference, the f2.0 is going to be represented as a full frame f8, and then the 2.8 is going to be represented as an f11. The last con that I thought I should bring up is in low light situations, if you bump the ISO above like 640, 800, you're going to start introducing a lot of noise, but I find with modern AI technology, it's actually not a big deal, and this is what I was able to do at a concert that I was at when the image didn't turn out great, but I added some AI noise reduction. All right, so what's the verdict? Should you still think about buying this camera? If you're under the impression that you can't take a good picture with something like this because it's 15 years old and you think you need to spend thousands of dollars on the latest and greatest to take good pictures, you're wrong. A camera like this that costs you a few $100s is actually the perfect way to dial in your manual settings and also your composition and things like that, and just create your own style as a photographer. Is it going to be great to use it for a ton of professional work? Absolutely not. Could you get away with it? I think in some instances, yes, but I'm not going to recommend it as a professional camera. I just think it's like one of the best starter photography cameras that you could buy. The best thing about it is that you can pick one up cheap and you can throw it around and you can travel with it. And if it gets lost or stolen or damaged or something like that, it's not going to absolutely break your heart and break the bank. If you're still not sold on this camera, check out my reviews of the Sony RX and we will see you next time. Maddie out. Peace.